So in addition to my work here at EDMProd, I also run a drum and bass record label called 174. And over the past 2 years, we've been sent our fair share of demos. And as both a producer and an A&R, I've made and seen so many mistakes made by producers desperate to get their music signed, but have just missed the mark. And in today's video, I want to go over 5 things you need to stop doing in order to get your demos listened to by your favorite labels. Now, as part of this video today, I've included some free email templates. You can use these to send to your favorite labels and apply the principles I'm about to teach you, so you can grab those for free in the description below. So the first mistake is that you're sending music that is just simply not the right fit. When I started out, I held onto the idea that I needed to be sending hundreds and hundreds of emails in order to get my music out there, that someone might like it. But the reality is that 20% of the labels that I could have sent my music to were 80% more likely to be listening and signing my music. Instead of even 20, I could have just picked 3 or 4 really perfect fit labels that were the right ones. There's a few ways in which you'll probably know which labels are more likely to sign your music, and some of them kind of sound obvious, but some of them not so much. And the first thing is just to listen to the label's back catalog and really make sure it's a good fit. You know, if their recent music in particular, and not just even old music, because you really want to be on the heartbeat of what that label's doing now rather than 10 years ago. If your music isn't aligning with that current sound they've got, then you probably want to try sending it to a different label. Labels get sent so much music, and so much of that is already aligned to their sound. Why would your track, which is very vaguely familiar with their sound or not even at all, be any better, right? The second thing you need to do is just to head onto a store like Beatport or whatever store you like, and just check the genre listing of the music and the label itself, because you don't want to be sending, say, dubstep music if you're sending it to a trap label, you know, or you don't want to be sending future bass to a house label. And lastly, you need to just have a look at the label submission guidelines to make sure that there's nothing you're missing. Like, for example, if you're sending to a multi-genre label and you assume that they accept drum and bass, maybe they don't accept drum and bass and you've just sent it to them, and that's going to get instantly rejected. So read up on these things. These things are normally located on their website, listed in their SoundCloud description or thereabouts. And it's really important to remember through all of this that there is a label for every sound out there. So if you're thinking, oh, there's nothing out there for me, then either 1, start a label, 2, look harder, or just release it on your own. And the second part of this as well is that sometimes your music just isn't really good enough. And that's a reality that I've faced with people submitting to me and me submitting to other people. And if your music isn't great, it's probably because it's got a lot of things that make it sound amateur. And if you're wanting to transition from that amateur to that professional sound, there's a video I've got called Amateur vs Pro Music Production that you should definitely check out if you want a few extra tips there. Okay, so mistake number 2 is that you're simply just sending it to the wrong person. You'd be surprised how many people think that you can just send a demo out to anyone at a label and it will magically somehow get redirected to the right person. But here's what happens in reality. And it's really important that you find the right area to submit your demos to. Now, normally this will either be a demo's email address or a demo submission platform. If there is an email address, there usually is a demo's @ email address that you can send it to, and it's listed somewhere obvious. But if not, sometimes it may be that you just send it to the label owner's personal email address and that's their preferred way of receiving it. That's fine too if they specify it, not if they don't. Or basically there's any email address that they've just listed. You know, if it's a Gmail address, that's like, you know, coolrecordsdemos@gmail.com. Maybe they've set that up just for demos. What you shouldn't do is send it to their PR team, the media team, a random person at the company that you found their email address on some random blog because you Googled it. Don't do that. It's not going to get sent to the right person, and it's just going to frustrate people. Now, if you have a demo submissions platform, submit there. Don't submit it to an email address. There's a reason they have these things in place. We use a demo submission platform for 174 called Label Engine. It streamlines the process and makes it really easy for both the label and the artist to send music. And make sure when you do it that you include as much information as possible. There's a reason they're asking certain questions on these platforms. It's so that they can see if you're the right fit. Now, if you can't find a demo submission link for a label, it's probably because they just don't want to receive demos, and you'd have to respect that. But it's not the only way that you can send demos to a label, which is what I'm going to get to in mistake number 3. But before we do, if you're finding this helpful so far, it'd be really awesome just for you to give it a like so other people will get shown this in the algorithm. Okay, so mistake number 3 is that you're taking the front door approach. Now, You kind of have to take the front door approach when you're new and you're getting out there in the world, because it develops skills that you are going to use down the line. But it is literally 30 times easier to get signed to a label if you have a prior contact with someone. In other words, you take the back door. To give you an illustration, 90% of the music we receive at 174 is rejected because it's either not the right fit, it's not good music, or there's just not that much convincingness to sign it. Like the artist is kind of still growing, or there's something that's not quite right about their online presence or something like that. It's a lot of work to sign an artist, and it has to be really convincing for a label to make that decision and make that leap, because it's an investment for them as well. But friends of ours who submit music to the label, who send me their music in their DMs or whatever, I'm a lot more likely to sign because I know them. I know what their music's like. I know what their social media is like. I know what they're capable of. I know that they're great to work with. So it's a lot less friction. So if you want to do this, how do you get in the back door? Well, there's a few ways I recommend, and this is kind of the process that has worked for me in the past. Ultimately, the best way is to meet the person responsible in person. If you can go to an event that's run by a label, or that person's going to be attending, or even if you have to travel to a different city, it is like 100 times more likely that once you've made that personal connection, that down the line when you connect digitally, it's going to be that like deeper level of relationship already, because they've put a name to the face. They've seen what you're like in person. Whereas doing it just digitally, it's not impossible, and I've done it many times, but you are at the disadvantage. But if you can't meet in person, the best thing to do is to find that person on social media who's responsible, give them a follow, like and comment on their posts, leave meaningful comments, like don't just comment like a thumbs up or a fire emoji, like leave something actually of substance. And then after a little bit of time, slide into their DMs, and before you actually ask for anything, just introduce yourself and say, hey, this is who I am. Awesome to meet you. Love your work. Great to connect, sort of thing. Be really human and casual about it. See if they respond. And then you can develop the relationship from there. And then when the time is right, you can send demos because you've got that prior connection and it's not weird. So I'd highly recommend taking that approach if you really want that high hit rate, because connections are always going to be better than trying to get in the front door. Now, before I get onto mistake number 4, I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate that we just hit 30,000 subscribers here on the EDMProd YouTube channel. And I just wanted to thank you from myself, Luca, and the EDMProd team for all your support, all the sticking around, all the subscriptions, all the comments. We are just super excited for what we're doing on this channel and at EDMProd in general. If you aren't subscribed as well, make sure you hit subscribe and join the rest of us. It's going to be good. Okay, so mistake number 4 is that the emails you're writing suck. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. Like, we're producers, we're not writers, so we're not necessarily we don't gravitate towards writing. Writing was a skill I developed, actually part of working at EDMProd. It's actually my worst subject in school, but I feel like I'm really good at it now. And it's such a beneficial skill because you need to know how to communicate both effectively and quickly. In a time-poor world, these people are getting sent hundreds, if not thousands of emails of demos of other stuff. And you need to get to the point, and you need to provide the value in the quickest, easiest, and most effective way possible. This goes for whether you're also submitting via demo submission platforms or via email. It's the same principles of communication. If you're using a demo submission platform, you need to be filling out as much information as possible without being verbose. But here's a few rapid fire pointers if you are writing emails for sending your demos, because I think these principles, which are part of those email templates you can grab below for free, because these are really going to help you move from like an average, boring email to something that's punchy, snappy, and to the point. So here they are. You need to have an interesting subject line. Make it something like, hey, I've got something cool for you, not artist name, track name, demo. That is just boring and no one's going to click on that. Don't send your music as an email attachment. It's just probably not even going to get sent because like inbox quotas and stuff like that, and it just looks really annoying. Emails with just a link will just get sent to trash. I would never click on them, and I don't think anyone else would. Make sure when you're sending that it's a private, downloadable, and streamable link. So something like SoundCloud Private or Dropbox. I personally use Dropbox nowadays and prefer it just because of the higher quality audio. And also, if the label has specific guidelines on how they prefer to receive demos, in what format, make sure you follow that. On that note, I'd highly recommend it being an MP3 320 file or a WAV/lossless file, just because you really want to give the best impression you can with the quality of your music. You also want to make sure it's the final, closest possible version to the complete product. This means don't send an idea, don't send half an arrangement, send a full arrangement with some sort of mastering, whether it's just you putting a limiter on or something like that. Make sure you're keeping links to a minimum. You want to kind of give one clear call to action for the label, like listen to this group or this one demo. If you send like here's one demo plus here's a few others, it's kind of like just confusing. Have it one link to everything, make it really easy. And make sure you actually use, this is a big one, use the person's name. Like if it's there, especially, like people like to be called by their name, not just be like, hey man, hey there. People love their names, and connecting on that level is more personal and it's just more genuine. And so if you've got that, use it in the address, you know, when you're addressing them, whatever. Make sure you keep the emails as short as possible. I tend to stick to what I call the no scrolling rule, which is where my email has to kind of fit on one page, whether it's mobile or desktop. That's just readable in that format. Be really clear to the point, but friendly. You can do that, you know, if you're too short and too like to the point, it just looks transactional. But if you put a little bit in there about like, you know, being friendly and actually connecting with the person, that's really nice. But don't add your life story in at the same time. It's about finding that balance. Make sure you customize the email for the person as well. Like if there's something relevant to the person, like, hey, I used to live in Amsterdam, or hey, I really liked your latest release. It was probably my favorite one of the year. Like include that information, because it's just going to be way better for you to be able to connect on that level. And if you're using templates, make sure you customize those, you know, including the ones we use for this video down below. And please, 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 please do not CC or BCC multiple labels at once. That is just annoying, and it's going to look really ingenuine because you're sending the same generic thing out to multiple people. Make sure you embed the link of your demos folder or demos link with text. So don't just paste the HTTPS link, like write like SoundCloud link or downloadable link, like highlight it and include a hyperlink on that text. It just looks way cleaner and gives, you know, again, the label a really clear place to head towards when they're listening to your demos. And lastly, respect their time. Thank them for listening to your demo, you know, and again, keep it short because they don't want to feel like you're just wasting their time by sending out some huge long thing. Every time I get sent a super long email, it's a turn off, because it's like, who's going to read that? I'm certainly not going to read that. And yeah, make sure to grab those PDF email templates, because all the stuff I just mentioned is going to be included in that. And lastly, number 5 is that you're not following up. I would say 80% of the releases I've ended up getting come from email follow-ups. When you send that initial email and it's like, even if it's a perfect fit, even if it's the right song, it's the right label, it's everything ticks the boxes. People listen to it, they're like, yeah, this is cool. But they just forget to respond. These people have so much to do. You can't expect them to be like, you are not the sole focus of their attention. There's lots of competing things. So a gentle, polite, you know, follow up 1 to 2 weeks after you send your first initial email is recommended. What I don't recommend is like following up a few hours or days after, which is what some people do. And I've had that happen to me before. And it's just really rude. Like especially when it's like a few hours, like I've been sent something and like, hey man, did you see this? It's like, don't do that. That is a turn off. And then you can send an additional follow-up 1 to 2 weeks after that if you feel it's necessary. But normally I find just the one follow-up suffices. But if you follow these 5 tips, you won't necessarily get signed every single time, but what you will find is you just have a higher success rate on average. And that's what this video has been about. So if you found these helpful in any way, again, make sure to give that like so it gets shown to other people. And again, subscribe to the EDMProd channel for more stuff like this and around electronic music production. I'll see you in the next one.